There we go. And we're good. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight for this session of a candidate conversation. We are joined by Dr. Saul Lankster and Steve Schultz, a teacher in the Fountain Valley High School. Sorry. My name is Christine Hernandez. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am one of the candidates running for Huntington Beach Union High School. I'm so excited to be here today. We're going to kick it off with a couple of introductions. You know who's here in this room, who's speaking, and then we've got a couple of questions for one of our teachers in the district. Saul, would you mind introducing yourself first?
Happily, I'm glad to introduce myself. My name is Saul Edward Lankster. I am a teacher. On the ballot, it shows me as Saul Lankster, criminal justice professor. However, I'm also a high school teacher. I taught a full day today. I covered a class, I taught an extra period because I covered a class for another teacher that was out today. I covered a class, an ELD class, if you would believe that. And of course, I had my wife to come in and speak for me, and I introduced her to the class since she is a native Spanish. My wife is a native Spanish speaker from Madrid, and she introduced herself and spoke to my class. But I'm a teacher. I was born to teach, although I decided when I got out of high school that I was not going to be a teacher, that I was going to do anything but be a teacher. And I ended up, after retiring from the Compton Police Department as the top police detective in the department and president of the Police Officers Association, I decided that I was going to do what I was born to do, and that is to teach. My mother was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. My great-grandfather, this guy here, who is an emancipated slave, was also a teacher and the founder of the high school that I graduated from. So I better shut up now and let Christine talk a little bit, because I get carried away when I start talking about my family.
I feel the same way, and I know that they're probably listening in too. So like I mentioned, my name is Christine Hernandez. On the ballot designation, Saul, I'm glad you brought that up, is Student Engagement Director. Most people, including friends and family, ask me what that means. So I manage a department. I'm looking at facilities, supporting students. I think really this fall, I've been spending a lot of time helping our recent high school students and our transfer students transition to the college environment. So I work at a college. I've been in higher education and nonprofits for 10 years now. I think you were mentioning earlier, Saul, that you were teaching all day. That was basically my afternoon. So I managed 17 sections of a first year seminar course, and I was in HTML jail for a little bit, trying to set up some of the different Moodles and course components. I decided to run because I was, really passionate about education for a long time, but seeing kind of the COVID-19 response across the country, but especially in education, just really prompted me to want to speak up in this kind of idea of having more collaborative, active communication, empathetic leadership. So I think we were going to mention too some of our endorsements, so folks who haven't made a decision yet kind of know a little bit more about us. So for myself, I am a first-time candidate. I've never run for office before. I didn't even know I was going to run this year, but I felt so compelled to do it in order to serve my community that I decided to run. I have been endorsed by Run for Something, which trains first-time young candidates to run for office. I have also been endorsed by the Democratic Party of Orange County. Saul, would you mind mentioning yours as well?
Yes, I've been endorsed by the Republican Assembly for Fountain Valley, Westminster, and Huntington Beach. The chairman of the Republican Assembly, they had two vetting conferences. Russ Neal is the chairperson, and you had to get a two-thirds majority vote in order to get their endorsement. And there were two candidates for that endorsement. Of course, I was a candidate, and so was Dr. Simons, who is an incumbent on the board. And I'm happy to say that they rejected the incumbent candidate, Dr. Simon. He did not get their endorsement. Only one person got the endorsement who was competing there, and that was me. I'm proud of the fact that I am endorsed by the Republican Assembly, and I'm also endorsed by the DEA, by the Teachers Association, an endorsement of which I am most proud.
Well, you can tell with your banner. And so I think I'm so glad that you shared this. And I think we're so fortunate today. Both of us are really passionate about hearing about what's happening in the district and providing some solutions. And so we're joined by Steve Schultz, as I mentioned, one of the teachers in the district. Steve, would you mind doing a quick introduction?
Yeah, thank you both for asking me to be here. My name is Steve Schultz. I've been an employee of the Huntington Beach Union High School District for 18 years, a teacher for 11 years. I'm also running for a different school board that feeds into this district, the Fountain Valley School District. And I hosted a debate of all the candidates a few weeks ago, all 6 candidates for school board. And what I really admire about you two, Christine and Saul, is, all the candidates that night, when I asked them questions, talked about how important listening is in leadership and soliciting feedback from teachers. But after that debate, you two were the only two who reached out to me afterwards and said, hey, Steve, I want to learn more. What's the experience like for teachers? What's the experience like for students? And yes. I mean, it's so rare today for leaders to actually listen and solicit feedback. So I was so impressed, and we talked multiple times over the phone since that debate. And I'm happy to elaborate today on the concerns we're having that I've heard from parents and from so many teachers from every site in our district, as well as from students. And so we're in desperate need of strong leadership right now to fix a lot of the problems I'm seeing. So thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for reaching out and actually generally caring, not just talking about it, but taking the action and showing you're 2 leaders who really are going to listen to the experts, to people in the field like teachers. So thank you so much.
Oh, we're all about it. So we'll go ahead and get started. I want to make sure that we're mindful of folks' time. So we've got a couple of questions, both Saul and I, that Steve, we want to ask you. So the first one is, next week is coming up. November is coming up really closely. What does it look like right now for the reopening plans, and how's that working out?
Sadly and disappointingly, it's a major letdown. And it's chaos. When we started school online back in September, we got no communication from our district. In fact, we started the 2 days before we went back live with kids. We got the bell schedule for the very first time, of which there was no passing period. Some of the periods weren't at the same time. They made some mathematical errors. We didn't know technology we're going to use. In the school district I'm running for, I think those middle school kids have like 11 different software programs they had to learn. In our district, instead of streamlining it all the kids in one thing, we have 4 or 5 different programs teachers are using. So a student might have to log into 5 different programs to learn. So it was chaos then. So we were hoping, okay, since they're not opening November 3rd, they would have all these stuffs in order. And like I said, we start school on Tuesday, and we're still pretty much in the dark as we were when we started online a while ago. We've been told today that some of the technology that was given to us, we have to give back because they didn't order enough. And the rest of the technology is not coming in until potentially end of November or December. So we're like, what are we going to do for the first month? We have kids live. And then a video was sent out yesterday to parents from our school board and our superintendent. It's the first time I've seen our superintendent visual. I knew what he looked like. And it said that all teachers were going to get these desk shields in the video. And there are none on any campuses. And I've talked to 3 different administrators, and all 3 gave me different answers when they're coming in. I emailed the district, and I heard back today that we're supposed to get them before kids come on Tuesday. But I followed up, well, are teachers getting more than one? Because the one you showed in the video only covers half the teacher's desk. So we're going to need at least 2 to cover the full desk. And our students getting these as well. And I got no response back from the district. So we're really not sure. And we have no training in how to do this. And here's the biggest concern for me as an educator. I'm someone who puts students first. And I've heard from so many parents who feel lied to, and so many teachers who feel confused too. When we were asked to pick as a parent or a teacher back in the summer, you want your kids going in a hybrid program or all online program, it would assume that if you picked in person, you would expect in-person teaching. What we're being told now, and what we're supposed to do is, you might have your son or daughter be an in-person student in this district, and you might have 3, 2, all 5 of your son or daughter's teachers be online only teachers, which means they're coming in to the classrooms, sitting down and being told to open up their laptops again. And the district's paying for a sub to sit in there and watch as the teacher talks onto a screen. Well, that is not in-person instruction. And I'm an in-person teacher, and I picked that because I didn't want to deal with all the nonsense. You're muted, Dr. Lankster, just so you know that. So I can't hear you, but I see you asking me something. And then you have maybe 9 or 10 kids. I'm only going to see kids in person 1 day a week, which to me is still, then what's really the point? But so I was like, how am I supposed to teach the kids are in person and then the other, 25 or so online every period, plus the online only. And I was kind of just advised today by our admin, well, just teach like you would when you were on online teacher. Sit at your desk, open up your computer and make all the kids in the class open the computer, or have a webcam and just kind of get audio of you as you move around and talk. Well, having kids sit at home and watch security camera footage is not online instruction. And having kids sit in the classroom and watch a computer is not in-person instruction. So we're failing both these kids, we're failing our parents, and we're failing teachers. There were so many better ways to do this, but when teachers weren't involved in the process and ignored along the way, and most of the time our emails aren't even responded to, this is the chaos we get. So yeah, I'm upset as a teacher because I feel like our kids are being cheated, and it makes me really mad.
Well, and I think part of this is cultural. A lot of the issues that you're explaining in terms of and I think about it like an end user, like when were the parents involved in the decision making? When were the students to say, hey, I have a question about this? And all of that feedback that could have been collected sooner that would have helped to at least, number one, help make a decision on how reopening happens, but also how do we communicate it and what's going to be the most important and what stresses out, our students and our parents and our teachers. Because if we don't even know what other people care about, or we don't put that up front and center to communicate with, it's so much harder. But if you don't have a culture where people are given that feedback or part of or at the table talking about the reopening, then you end up with kind of this presentation of here's how it's going to look. And there's still a lot of questions. And I think it's hard to hear, kind of see what you're sharing in terms of how it's going, because we know that it can be done better. I have a child in one of the feeder districts, and they've been amazing in terms of I feel like I'm a partner with them, with her teacher, and I feel like they have a sense of support. Like you can tell that there's just a different cultural shift at the elementary school district versus kind of what I've been hearing within the Huntington Beach High School District. Saul, what do you think too?
Well, I wanted to back up because I didn't understand exactly what Steve was saying about being online and a sub being in the classroom. Are you saying that all the teachers have to come to the classroom and teach, or some of them will teach from home while all the students are in the classroom? I mean, I have 2 daughters that are at Huntington Beach High School. What are they looking at? If I said I wanted them to go back to school, will they have their teachers at school?
Probably not, most of them. We don't know. And here's the problem too. All the teachers who have been requesting to be online only, right? We start school in a few days. They still haven't even been told yet if they're going to be allowed to be online only. And so, I've heard from some parents who their students asked teachers, and one parent said how one of their kids who's going to be an in-person student, only one of his teachers are an in-person teacher. That means every class he goes to, the district is using taxpayer money to pay a substitute teacher every single day for the rest of the year to sit in the room and monitor why they open up a laptop and their teacher teaches them via Zoom still, which is not in-person instruction. And so as a teacher, I'm furious. As an educator, as an expert in education, I'm furious. And as you mentioned, there have been so many other districts that have already been opened up for a long time who have done this so much better. We're one of the last districts to open up. And how are we this terribly planned? I don't understand it at all.
Well, and I get
a waste of money too.
Yeah, well, and we know that it's, there's empathy there of, it's unprecedented, but at the same time, there was a reality that hit in March and April where the planning.
We've had 5 months.
We've had 5 months. At this point, I'm like, what are we waiting for? We need to figure out something where we're not spending as much money as we are for substitutes. And I think, Steve, you brought up too, for the teachers who want to work online or who want to teach online and, can only teach online for whatever reason, and they don't know yet, what for those who are parents who have dependent care, who have to figure out all those logistics and it's coming up, this is just, it's added stress and it's added chaos.
But not only for the teachers, but for the parents and students too. So that's fine if we want to we should have created an online academy and let teachers that want to stay home and pair them up with students that want to stay home. But you don't promise kids and parents in-person instruction and say, oh, by the way, you might have all, half, or partial of your teachers be online teachers. I would be furious if my son or daughter is coming to high school to sit in a room and learn off a computer screen. It's what? It's ridiculous. I mean, so it's not effective in person. It's not even truthful. It's not really in-person instruction. And so as a teacher, I don't want to be teaching through a screen. That's why I chose in-person teaching. That's the magic and art of creating the lessons to come to life. And now I'm being told to sit behind a desk, open up my computer screen, and teach the exact same way. Then what am I coming to school for? And what are these kids coming to school for? It's ridiculous.
Well, I'm concerned that in all of this, that the teachers apparently were not involved in determining how or when you are going to go back and with what format. That weren't you involved in making these decisions, Steve?
No, and this is going around. This anti-teacher sentiment that's nationwide needs to stop. That's one of the reasons why myself as a teacher, I'm running for Fountain Valley District School Board, because I'm tired of it. When you treat teachers like enemies instead of experts, this is the mess you get. We need to start treating teachers as leaders and bring them to the table. And you know, Dr. Lankster as a teacher, and Christine, you've seen this too, but especially there's all kinds of districts that have committees and bring teachers in for a day or two and waste their time and not use any of their input and then claim this was a teacher collaboration project, which is a total farce. No, I mean, the fact that most teachers, I've heard from many of every site in our district, haven't even who sent emails or phone calls to our superintendent and haven't even gotten a response. I mentioned this in our debate last time. I personally have sent out an email to the school board and the superintendent twice and no response at all. And I know I heard from the ASB student body president of Fountain Valley High School. She sent an email out to the superintendent. Didn't even get a response. Not a response from anyone, not an assistant, nothing. And so when that kind of negligence and just disregard for the experts in the room, the people who are be in the front lines, not someone who's in an office, by themselves, but people who are going to be in these rooms with these kids, and to not ask our input, to not even respond or talk to us, is a travesty. And because who really gets hurt? I mean, yes, we're frustrated as professionals, but who's really getting hurt here? The kids. And there's no one who advocates more for children than teachers do. So we're really upset right now. You thought teachers were mad 2 years ago when we went to impasse in this district and almost came near a strike. We're way more upset now, because not only are you disrespecting us continuously, now you're putting students in a disadvantage they did not have to be in. This is not March anymore. This is now the new year. We've had time to plan, and you should be listening to experts, and to ignore them, to not even respond to their suggestions or input, is the biggest failure of leadership.
Well, Steve, there's an old saying in education, particularly in secondary education, that teachers care about their students and administrators care about their careers. So that can only be viewed as being so true when you look at the fact that today, for the first time, I got a chance to see the face of the superintendent. I saw him at the board meeting, but I saw him from behind, and I saw him get up and walk out when the teachers started asking questions that he did not want to answer. He never responded. The board never responded. And how they can get away with that, it is pathetic. I don't believe the voters are going to allow them to get away with that. They have messed up our school district. They apparently either don't know or don't care what they're doing, and we are not going to accept it. I'm a parent, and I was appalled today when I saw the president of the board doing a propaganda video, and then I saw this superintendent, who, by the way, just got a humongous pay raise and a new contract, even though his contract had not expired. Board gave him a new contract, and for what? I don't get it. There's something wrong here, Steve. You tell me, why are they doing this?
I've never met our superintendent. So I saw his face today. I mean, you think you're frustrated. I've been an employee here for a long time, never met him. So I didn't realize really what he looked like. And as I mentioned in our debate a few weeks ago, only 2 direct communications from him in 6 months. We just got a third one the other day that was sent on behalf, I think, by a secretary. But when you don't communicate and you don't form relationships and you don't ask for input, you don't solicit it like you two solicited to me. You're the first people in my entire 18-year career in this district, and you're not even on the board yet, who've ever asked me for my input on what's happening in this district. You know, and when I've had multiple town hall meetings with the teachers in the school district I'm running for, FE School District, they all tell me the same thing. Wow, you're the first person to solicit feedback from teachers. This is so nice. This is not indicative of just our district alone. This is nationwide problem of politicians running school districts and not having actual educators make current active education policy. That's why I'm running for school board. I know that's why you two are running for school board. So I appreciate you two actually bringing me on here today to ask me these questions. I've never been asked these questions by anyone, and my colleagues I hear from have the same frustrations as well.
Well, see, go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, no, and I think this is like, see what you're saying, like this is part of why I ran and what the way I've been running the way I have. So I've been offering office hours twice a week. So that anybody who wants to drop in can come talk, share their feedback. I know that I'm not on the board yet, so I don't have the same amount of power that a board member does, but I think it's helpful to hear from our community and give them those open spaces. I had a community feedback form on my website this whole time, so that if anybody wants to submit feedback, they could submit it and I will respond. Same thing with emails. I think we've all probably had those uncomfortable conversations with people who are maybe from a different, ideology or have a different idea of what it is, but being able to find that common ground and just actively listen. And I think one thing that, I want to be mindful too, as we're having this conversation, is I'm in full support of the teachers. And I think I obviously as a board member would advocate for, those who are part of our community. But I think one thing we're missing here too is our staff. So our on the ground staff, our facility staff. And when I was listening to one of the board meetings over the summer, just kind of this ability to hear from them and what their experience has been like, because we often forget about them too, that they've been maintaining the grounds, that they've been taking care of the students as well. And, where is their feedback? And I think it has to be the entire environment listening and the entire, our whole community coming together versus everything coming from a top down approach. Otherwise, we really don't know what's going on.
And that staff is critical too. We've had so many of our support staff who've already been back on campus for a long time now. Some don't have the desk shield. Some are nervous to be there. But it's also important, not only do we listen to these staff members, but to make sure that these staff members are listening to our directives. I've been on campus 4 different times in the past 3 weeks and seen janitorial staff not wearing masks inside the rooms, inside the buildings. So we have kids coming the next morning in these systems that have flawed HVAC systems with no windows and no doors. And if we're having a bunch of janitors in there for hours all night long with no masks, breathing and touching things, we're putting our teachers and kids at risk too. I've reported this to our admin and it continues to happen. So I'm not sure how they're enforcing that. Again, here's the common theme of this year. I'm not sure. We don't know. And this is what our on-site admin keeps us. We don't really have the answers. I mean, bless their hearts. Our on-site admin district-wide do the best they can, but even they're telling us we're not really getting much directive. So it's really frustrating when this is the second reopening now and a few days away. And we, just like in August, September, we don't know what's going to go on. Like, not all of us even have enough technology to do what they want us to do. It's just a travesty.
Let me just say this, Steve. I bring to the table experience of 17 years serving on a school board. I also bring to the table 4 years serving on a college board, president of the Salvation Army, president of the Salvation Army Advisory Board for 16 years. I am not new to this process, and I welcome the leadership that is going to come along, the new leadership that is going to come on the board with me, Christine. I welcome this leadership because we're going to change this board. This community is removing both the president of the board and the vice president of the board. They came on the board before cell phones were invented. They've been on there for over 30 years, and it's time for them to go. And we're bringing new blood, new responsibility, and we're going to bring new life to this community.
Well, and I think Saul, exactly that. We have the experience to be able to handle the situation. This whole summer, in addition to running for office, going back to school part-time, having a 5-year-old daughter get ready for kindergarten, I was also preparing for a reopening at my own institution. And we had to go through the whole thing of the PPE and the shields and moving furniture and figuring out the class schedules and refiguring it out and then finding out we're going to go online. And it's stressful. I recognize that, but we still have to do it if we're serving our students and making sure that we're doing the best that we can and dealing with it with the budget cut. And I think, Saul, to your point too, of the length of the board, I think that I did the math for the entire board. The average length of service is 18.8 years. The national average is 8 years. And that was in a study that was done 2 years ago by the National School Board Association. And so I think
Okay.
there was that topic brought up in the debate, and I've seen it in some of the ads of, this experienced leadership and not changing anything. And even if we were to be brought in, that average would still be there. And I think we got to speak to, at what point is anyone else allowed to be on the board and to bring in new voices? And if this is experienced leadership right now, then is it working?
Yes, and clearly it's not working at Huntington Beach Union High School District. So Steve, how can we as new board members best serve the teachers? We're going to hit the ground running, okay? How can we best serve the teachers and restore some confidence? There's a fiduciary relationship between the leaders who are elected and the teachers who are on the front line and the parents and then the students that we serve. How can we best be of assistance?
Eliminate your ego. And this is something I've reached out to the board and I've told them personally over the phone in my conversations with them. And I'm not really sure if they're listening. As a leader, as I mentioned to all you guys, you have to eliminate your ego and you have to elevate love. You have to love even more, even after. And even when there's things that the teachers union have done that I don't agree with all of it, that I find to be disrespectful. But, sometimes when teachers are shouting in a board meeting, I wouldn't recommend it. And I was against it. But usually that means they don't feel like they're being heard. And so it's an ego response to storm out as our board did and walk out the room. That's an ego response. It doesn't make them bad people. It makes them people. That's normal. But as leaders, we have to check our normal personness and elevate to a higher level of love. We want to be great leaders. And we should respond with, you know what, this is disrespectful, but let me pause and say, here's people who are hurting and I'm their leader. And so my job is to listen. We're not always going to agree, but my first act of a leader is to listen. And that didn't happen then. They should have said, okay, excuse me, please stop yelling. We want to hear you and we want to listen to you. Not ignore everything they said. And then, I've been trying to work really hard there's the biggest divide I've ever seen between our teachers, our staff, and our district leadership. And I've been trying to work with both sides to bring some peace. But ultimately, the onus is on the most powerful person. And that's our school board and our superintendent. I never met our superintendent. That's a problem. But we have to, at a certain point, say, okay, I have hurt feelings in the past. I have to get over my ego and start fresh. And Michael Simons didn't mention this, but I'm still waiting for the action behind it. And say, how can I reach out to this union, to the teachers, and find a way to bridge the gap? And we have to listen. But as I told both of them, you guys have to coach up your district leadership team because it's not where it needs to be at. And if our leaders can't change, then we need to change our leaders. And I'm a voter in this district too. And so we first, and I mentioned to you guys all, how important is leading with love to you? And a couple of people act like, well, we're not in the business of personal relationships. We're in the business of disseminating education. Then you don't understand the business of education. Imagine if I, as a teacher, said to a parent, I'm not responding to your emails, or I'm not here to care about your kid. I'm here to give him some information. Then that would make me a terrible teacher and it would make you a terrible leader if you think your job is not first and foremost to create meaningful, earnest relationships with the staff and the teachers. And that's not happening because there is no leadership without relationship. That's just bossing people around. We need you to, if you're elected, who's ever elected, to eliminate ego and elevate love and say, I'm going to try and reach out to every single staff member. I write handwritten letters to 200 of my students every year, plus my basketball teams. I can't even get emails from district personnel, let alone a handwritten letter or meet them or talk to them. I don't get it. And so you have, just as we know as teachers, before you can deliver content, you have to connect, right? And so we have to have a district leadership that believes in leading with love and transparency and honesty and communication. You can't say family strong in the spring and a hashtag and a superintendent email and then never respond to any of us the rest of the next 5 months and say, well, we're too busy trying to get information out. Well, we're not getting the information out either. So and this is an epidemic nationwide and not just education, every business. We have to start getting less bosses and more leaders, and leaders are all about relationships, and that's not happening right now.
So I know we're right at time, but I think this topic right here is really good. And so I want to be mindful of our folks who are here. And Saul, just kind of thinking about it, So Steve brought up this point about ego and, relationship building. So as a board member, what do you do coming in? What's your leadership style coming in, knowing all this? What are you going to commit to?
Well, first of all, in my past, in terms of making decisions, you have to be able to make tough decisions. But I believe in love, but I believe in tough love. And 7 times in my career, I've had to vote to dismiss a superintendent. It's nothing new to me. That's not why I'm coming on the board, but nothing is going to get in the way of my connecting with the teachers and my serving the parents and the students of this district. The first thing I'm proposing is that we go on a retreat, even though it may be virtual. We go on a retreat and try and iron out some of the problems that we've had. And we're going to figure out how we're going to work together. We're going to check the egos at the door, and we're going to do a good job in this community because we can.
And I think for me, and I look forward to this retreat that you and I are going to go on with the other board members in a couple of weeks.
All right.
I think nothing makes you more humble than running for office, and that's not an ego thing. Like if you're really on the ground, I've been out on the field talking to people, text banking, phone banking, just reaching out and really kind of putting myself out there. And it does not, for those who are running, please do it one day. If you have a voice, please do it. But it can shatter your ego pretty darn well. I think, bring it on in terms of if you're mad and you're frustrated and we come in day one and people are still frustrated. I think we need to receive that anger, receive that anxiety, and start turning it into something positive so that we can make that change. And I think too, having to be at a table, whether it's virtual or not, of having our union reps from both the staff and the faculty, listening to students, having parents, give feedback. There was that one survey that was done in the district, but we need to start having a culture of assessment where we can constantly hear from the community so we can continue to make ourselves better. And I think being able to be vulnerable, to work together. And I think that's why I started these candidate conversations, to meet with some other people who are running. And I thank you, Saul, for giving that time too, just to see this is what it could be like. This could be the future. A month from now, we could be at a table together making these decisions.
Oh, that's a dream.
And Christine, I think you said such an important point that I really want to emphasize. And we can go over time. People want to go, they can go. But anyway, here it's so important. And every facet of business, of leadership, especially in the art of teaching. You said, welcome the critique, welcome the criticism. Too many people in positions of power see critique as an attack instead of awakening for improvement. And you not only have to welcome it, better yet, you have to go solicit it and find it. When I first started teaching, I remember talking to a veteran teacher and told him, yeah, I give anonymous surveys to my kids in the year. He's like, what, are you crazy? Why would you do that? I'm like, because I want to get better. He's like, don't you have some bad ones? I go, yeah, something's hurt, but that's how I improve upon it. And then I realized I can't do it at the end of the year. I have to do it in the middle of the year and in the year. So I'm constantly improving formal ones and also, informal forms of communication. And that's the reason why in my first 9 years, I was voted teacher of the year twice. And my 11 years of teacher, I've never gotten a single detention ever, because it's relationship based. It's not compliance based and bow down to me ego based. It's student centered leadership. We need teacher centered administrators as well, who are going to lead us. I've never in all my time here in this district, never once been asked by any administrator, site, district, anything, for my feedback on their job performance. Never. And so how can you improve if you don't? In fact, my old principal, not the current one, told me one time, because we do little anonymous surveys of our admin site-wise, but no one really sees that other than the admin on the site. And the former principal told me one time, because I went to him and I was upset with something, and he was like, I can't believe you're critiquing me. You've never been critiqued before? He goes, let me tell you what. He goes, I have my wife read all the evaluations every year and take out all the bad ones. I only read the good ones. I was like, you never become a good leader if you only read the good ones. And so we need a school board. And in fact, I remember interviewing our current school board members, a couple of them, and asked, when you gave our superintendent a contract extension, who did you seek feedback from? What teachers to be before you made that decision? And they were both like, well, I guess we really didn't. But then how do you know, how it's performing? How will our district admin know how they're performing if they don't talk to the people they're serving? And again, that might be a problem. Maybe they don't see us as people they're serving, but people they're bossing. And when you have teachers that boss and all about rule-based are bad teachers. Leaders who just boss and aren't relationship-based are bad leaders. And so if you want to get good, you have to solicit the hard, hurtful to hear sometimes feedback to improve yourself.
Yeah. any leader, Steve, any leader needs to have someone who will tell them what they need to hear rather than just what they want to hear. And for a superintendent or anyone in leadership to surround themselves with some sycophants or some yes people who all they're going to do is just sing their praises. And of course, when when board members start rubbing shoulders with the superintendent and they forget who brought them to the party, there is a real problem there. I won't forget that. I'm sure Christine won't. And what this current board has done, they've forgotten how they got there and who they came to serve and why they are there. And that is the reason why they are going to be removed.
I also want to say, to credit our school board and our superintendent, I don't know him personally, I've never met him. I'm assuming they're all really good people. This is not an attack on them as people. It's just a critique, an honest critique. And this is not just my opinion. I'm hearing from teachers all across the district that there is some major failures happening right now leadership-wise. And we're just trying to improve them. We're all on the same team. It's not about trying to bring someone down. It's about trying to build all of us up, especially our students. And so as a teacher, one of the most important lessons you can learn is never take anything personally when a student critiques you. And we have to make sure our school board and our superintendent, everyone else, aren't taking these critiques personally, but as an awakening to try and improve and become better people. And hopefully, I would love to say I don't know any of them. I wish I did. I wish we spent time together and we actually bonded and formed real relationships. I'm hoping it happens. I've asked the board for this. I've asked district leadership for this. So have many other teachers, and it hasn't happened yet. I think there's too much hurt feelings involved, but eventually you have to suck that up and lead up. And if they can't, I'm really impressed with you two, and I know we'll be in good hands.
Well, and I'm hoping this is how we can move forward, because a boss approach to leadership may have worked, at a different point in time, but it can't work now. And we need more than ever, we need that connection, and we need to work together, because none of us have been through this type of thing before, but we're going to need to hear from everybody and get different ideas, be creative, kind of work through the problems together, and just have that level of trust. Because I think when we don't have it, it just breeds anxiety and makes it so much harder to do the work that we're doing.
We don't use cassette tapes in 2020, and we shouldn't use 1980 leadership models in 2020 either. And the model for any kind of relationship is trust and communication. As a coach too, you want to learn how to be criticized become a high school coach or run for public office. I've done both. It's harsh sometimes, but you got to love even more, even after. And I always tell my teams, you can never listen too much or communicate too much. And right now, there's almost no listening and little to no communication. We really have to improve that district-wide. It's skills we teach in our classrooms, our English classrooms, that I expect of my 16-year-old students that I'm not seeing of my leadership team. And that's tough.
Well, and Steve, you brought up, you being an English teacher and the kind of the communication piece. And it's not just what you write, it's how other people interpret what you write. And so thinking about it, maybe people think that they're communicating at the district level, at the board level, but really it's not getting received. And so if you can't reach out to the people that you're trying to reach out, that doesn't mean that you say, well, they're not listening, or, the teachers and unions, but maybe I need to change the way I'm communicating. And I think that's
I can't just say, oh, my students, they're not learning, it's their fault. No, I'm responsible. I always teach my kids, being a leader means I'm responsible for it all, and I'm response-able. One of the biggest, you can't always control what happens. As a leader, you can control your response to what happens. And so we have to start having a leadership team that doesn't say, oh, it's the teacher's fault. It's his fault. No, look in the mirror, and you're the leader. You are ultimately the responsible one. And so any failure of communication ultimately is a failure of the most powerful person. And we need not only ego elimination and love elevation, we need responsibility restored back in every level of power in this country.
Well, see, let me just say, I don't know when we're going to close, but before we do, let me just thank you again for having the courage to respond to Christine and to respond to myself and to come on and to put yourself out there and give this community an idea of just what's really going on from that viewpoint of a teacher who's actually on the front line. I salute you, and I appreciate you for coming forward.
I know a lot of teachers feel the same way, but are afraid to speak out out of fear of retribution. I've never been afraid my whole career. But I also applaud both of you because you're the only two of the 6 that I interviewed last week or 2 weeks ago who reached out to me and asked for my opinion. And again, that shows your strength as leaders. You know, weak leaders want to be the smartest person in the room. Strong leaders want to fill the room with the smartest people. And it's time we start having that latter approach.
Yes.
And so I thank you both for having that type of strength to say, it's not about me, it's about us. And how can I bring people in to make sure, first and foremost, that these kids are having the best educational experience possible. And we're not just creating policy to mitigate parent anger, but we're creating proactive 21st century education policy that promotes intelligence and creativity and imagination and relationships with our students and with our staff, because nothing gets done without that. And I thank you for being transparent. I thank you for reaching out to me. And I know you call up multiple teachers too. Maybe because I'm running for office, I'm more of a public figure to answer these questions, which is fine. But teachers are hurting right now across this nation. They're scared, they're overworked, they're overburdened. And what they need from our leaders is to, remove the roadblocks, not add stop signs and turn left and pothole. Like, we need leaders to help these teachers out, and they're not. I mean, I don't even know if I have to go buy my own air filters, my own desk shields. I had to go buy my own K95 masks. All we're getting with is cloth masks, and this year got almost $12 million, $11 million in CARES Act money, and all we got was some cloth masks. I sent email out to the school board last summer with links to websites for N95 masks and KN95 masks, and said, I'm sure you probably have better resources, but if you don't, here's some stuff. How can I help? Let me know. I didn't even get a response back. Not even a thank you for your concern, or here's what we're doing. And I wanted to know, are we getting N95 masks? And didn't even get the respect of a response. So thank you for reaching out to me.
That's pathetic. So Christine, you going to close us out? Or?
Yeah. So I think if Saul, both you and I want to do just a kind of closing statement. I know we got some folks who still haven't voted yet. Maybe they've done part of their ballot, but haven't turned it in. Anything you want to share to the folks who are either here in the Zoom or watching the recording, Saul?
Yeah, well, first of all, Christine, let me congratulate you on getting the endorsement of the Democratic Party, and the other endorsements that I know you have others that you mentioned, and I'm sure you might want to mention again. But I thank you for your participation. I thank you for coming forward and allowing me to be a part of this. I am for sure strongly recommending everyone to get out and vote. And I can also assure everyone that if you give us your vote, you will never regret it.
Saul, I love that. I wish there was like a high five button in the Zoom just to kind of share that. Well, and I know we can't even do that even if we were in person. But I want to echo what Saul said in terms of I strongly encourage you to vote. Congratulations to Saul on your endorsement from the Republican Party. I think it says a lot to be able to have these conversations and to be open and honest and have a dialogue. And I really look forward to working with not only you, Saul, on the board, but our other board members who are here. I think we're both committed to making sure that our students are having the best experience. And part of it is, Saul, I know you've got kids in the district. I've got one that, she's just starting elementary, but for me, the next 8 years are going to be really critical to how this district forms, because it's going to be her future too. And if it's not my, kid, we're both educators. We know we're fighting for all of our students.
Yes.
And
yes.
all of our students tend to get really, that radius gets really big where everybody's your student. And so I'm just really looking forward to serving the community, making sure that we're advocating for the needs. And I think what Steve was saying, checking the ego at the door and just building those relationships, because we can do so much better. And I think
Yes.
we're here to fight for it.
And I just want to say thank you to every teacher in America. Your service to this nation, your sacrifice, for decades and decades, the education system in this country has been built on the backs of unpaid labor of teachers and out-of-pocket expenses of teachers. We don't need apples. We need your respect and love. And whenever I speak to teachers, I tell them students will love learning. They'll learn their love by their teachers. Imagine nationwide, but specifically in the Fountain Valley School District, which I'm running for school board for, and the Huntington Beach Junior High School District. Imagine even the greater levels our teachers can rise to when our teachers feel loved by our leaders and our parents and our communities. And right now, we're not feeling the love. And that's the most important thing to do. If you can, and we all have errors, and there are teachers make mistakes, and I'm not saying every teacher is perfect, nor am I. If you can do anything tonight, besides hopefully vote for me, and I know you guys want to vote for yourselves too, write a former teacher a handwritten letter, send them an email, make them a phone call, let them know the impact they made. You know, our lives matter most in the moments we let others know how much their lives matter. Let someone know they matter today, you see them, and that they're loved. Because the most important question every leader must, and we're all leaders in different ways, you don't need a title to be a leader. The most important question we all must answer every day to everyone around us is, do you love me? That's what everyone's asking all of us. Do you see me? Do I matter to you? Do you love me? Do you care about me as a person more than my job performance? And as a nation right now, we need to come together. And I want to challenge everyone to do something on purpose tonight and tomorrow and every day to make someone feel for certain that they are loved. We all do that, our nation will rise higher. So thank you both very much for being people who lead with love and for inviting me here tonight. You're listening to Vote Steve Schultz for Mount Valley School Board. And I want to thank you so much, Christine and Saul, because we're sorely lacking love right now, and we need it. We need it desperately. And I implore all of you to love larger.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. We'll make sure that this is available on our social media channel. So have a good night.